Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again. Believing a power greater than what you are going through. When you don't know what to do, keep breathing.
That's right. When you don't know what to do, just keep on breathing. From the City of Angels in Los Angeles, welcome to all my listeners out there in Radio Land. I'm Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver, at caregiverdave.com, along with my lovely co-host, Carletta Cole of caregiversafeplace.com. Also coming to you live and on demand 24/7 on numerous syndicated radio podcast networks, on 26 global audio and video platforms, including iHeartRadio and iTunes and Spreaker and YouTube and SoundCloud and Vimeo, and there's just too many to mention. But we are proud to be voted number one caregiver podcast of the top 50 on Player FM, and number 2 on FeedSpot out of the top 60, and number 2 on caringvillage.com. And we do have an especially exciting show planned for you today, don't we, Carletta?
Yes.
There it's unanimous. Dave Orazi.
Yes.
Why was he placed on this earth?
Why was I placed on this earth? Well, it took me a long time to figure that out. I mean, I went through a cycle of my life, let's say from the age of 30 to the age I am now. But it took me maybe about 20 years until I figured out why I'm here. When I was 7, I didn't know what was going on. My father had a nervous breakdown. He had like that movie, It's a Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe. At 7 years old, he was put in a mental hospital. When people didn't have to approve to be committed, he disappeared for 6 months. And I go, "Where's Dad, Mom?" And basically, she said, "Well, he went away for a while." And, he encountered his first nervous breakdown at 19. At that time, he was like 47. And basically, she said he's away. And I got to see him at the insane asylum, mental hospital, they used to call it, in Camarillo, California. And I didn't know what was going on. And my mom took me one day, and all I could remember at this stage of my life, we went around on the gardens and sat and had a little picnic, but a bunch of crazy people running around, But anyway, he got through that and came home after.
How was he before his first nervous breakdown? Any symptoms?
Oh, he was like super. My dad from the age of 20, his first breakdown was 19. He recovered and he won the World's Fair in Chicago with his artwork. After he recovered, he started working for Disney. He was the first cartoonist for Walt Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, created Dopey, then got his own radio show and got an Emmy. Then he had his own TV show on KTLA for 5 years. And, he was on top of the world. And then he got in this accident. A car T-boned him in Eagle Rock, and my mom was with him, and he was out of it for 6 months. It just threw him back into that mental stage. And so I grew up with him.
Did the car accident having to do with the breakdowns, or he had them before that, didn't he?
He had them before that. His first one was at 19 when he went to the Art League of America.
Would they give him shock treatments every time?
No, he got the 37 shock treatments when he was 47. That's when he got his first.
In what amount of time?
Within 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, he had 30.
Shock treatments help? I mean, today, what do we know about shock treatment?
Home. I don't know if he came home. He's got to be the most depressed person you ever saw. He came home and he went to his room and he slept for 14 hours a day. I go, "Man, what's wrong with my dad?" It was just crazy. I mean, people, I don't know if they ever experienced it, but and then he gradually came back, and his cycles as he got older got closer and closer, and he would actually get to the point where he'd go back out to his art studio. And I, like at 7, 8 years old, I'd find that the only way to connect, I get up with my dad at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I used to go out there and paint with them, and he gained my trust. So, and then he got back into the sales world, which is kind of interesting. I'll get to that later, how I feel that that's my calling. It took me a while to figure it out. And he was a super salesman in the 50. When he got out, he became the #1 car salesman for Glendale Dodge, which is one of the biggest ones in America. He set records. And then all of a sudden he'd go up in one of these tangents and he wouldn't sleep. And my mom would freak out. And it was like, I was in the middle of this. And then when I was 14, she couldn't handle it one day. And she said, hey, Dave, can you help Dad put himself in the mental institution? So at 14, my dad was sitting next to me and he says, hey, Dave, should I do this? And I go, Dad, crying. I said, Dad, you really should. You need help. And it worked. And so throughout his life, that happened another 4 times when I was in my teen years and my adult years. And till the day he died, I stayed close to him and, tried to follow. He was a fun guy. He was hilarious. My dad just was a big joker. He was his first cartoonist on TV and radio. But I mean, he wrote his own scripts. I still have some of them from the shows. I mean, he wrote his own poems. He was a great artist.
To me, I mean, I'm going to ask you what he was diagnosed with, but this sounds to me like what they used to call manic depressant, or now it's called bipolar. Is that what he was?
That's what he was. Correct. Yeah.
Very creative geniuses,
He was a borderline genius.
I'm sure you're aware of all of the great bipolar people that have lived on this earth and have accomplished great things.
Exactly. Yeah. And he was fascinated by that. He read every art book. Artists are so creative. And it's, I got 4 sons.
It was rampant in Hollywood, too. I know a lot of...
Exactly.
And a lot of industry people. I didn't realize it until, because my son is a child actor. He's an adult actor now, but he was a child actor. But noticing a lot of the people in the industry, they're very shy. And they're very, they're not come forward. They don't come forward as very strong people. They're more so just trying to find their way. And I think that's part of why they choose the industry, because they can pretend to be someone else. They can, act it out, even the emotions that they're feeling inside. They can play a character versus, people really thinking that it's themselves. So I think that a lot of people get in the industry because of that situation that helps them to grow out of the shyness. Although my son is still a little shy, he's grown tremendously out of his shyness through different characters.
You have it down, because as the later years, like when my dad was selling cars, he did a lot of character acting. He was on Dean Martin's show. He was on Sanford and Son. He was on All in the Family. I mean, and he realized that. And all his agent shots were all these character shots. And look at Johnny Carson. He said he was an introvert. I don't know if you remember or heard about Johnny Carson, but he had a lot
of tells that would indicate that he was very
exactly.
And Robin Williams, Robin
Williams.
Robin Williams was my favorite of all time, and still is. But he was not healthy. He wasn't mentally stable. But no one could ever figure that out, because he was always making us laugh and always happy. But inside, he was internalizing a lot of stuff. So, it's different. It's a different feeling when you are there to be their caretaker, and know that this person is not healthy. But in the public light, they see all this happiness. And I noticed as well, a lot of people, they're afraid. They're afraid to go to the doctor because their information get leaked. So they don't want to find the help because they don't want anyone to find out.
Would you say
they love being?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No. Oh, it's like a high. They love being high. I mean, my dad used to say, and he wrote about it, and I shared it, because all these journals he wrote, I was there watching him write it. He wanted to write his story, so I finished it for him. But he loved that, and he told what was going on in his mind when he was going through those cycles.
So he told about his mental illness.
Yes, he talked openly about his mental illness and what it felt like. He says it was like he had to get all this stuff done, and he didn't have time to do it. He died at 65.
That sounds like a movie.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to get the movie rights to that.
Oh, I don't know, but I think it'll be a great movie. Anybody that, nobody's approached me yet, but all my kids, everybody that reads it, family, they said, man, it's there.
That's why you need to go on TV.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yes.
you're right. They really try to keep inside what's going. They're in their little world, and they're creative, and so there's so much talent there.
So it's genetic bipolar, I am assuming. Yes.
Yes.
Your sister had that also.
My sister had that also.
And how is it that you skipped getting that?
It's interesting. It's like all of a sudden.
Or do you have it?
No. Maybe I'm borderline, because they tell me when I got therapy, she said, you're probably borderline, because I've never experienced it, but I take it and I vent it out in other areas where, customers like me, they love me, and I give them what they want, and I joke with them. And I found that the positive of what I seen within them. And, my sister, maybe if there was a period she went through some hard times with drugs, and I try to stay away from drugs, drink alcohol socially. But, I had a brother, my older brother, he had issues. He just passed away last year. I'm the only sibling left. I think he was either mentally or autistic. He got by. He was in the Navy for a while. My brother, he had encephalitis. He died at 39.
Were any of them on medication?
No.
No medication for your father? Could have helped, I guess, huh?
Yeah, he could have helped. But,
Dave,
they didn't know back then.
Yeah, exactly.
Dave,
Yes.
do you actually find yourself, do you feel as though being a salesperson is like self-medicating yourself as far as like making yourself happy? Because I can tell you from a caregiver, and I don't know if Dave feels the same thing, but I get a rush out of helping people, because on the inside, I want that same feeling. But because I don't get it often enough, I tend to help more people so that I can self-medicate myself for being loving and caring and openly helping other people, as some of my self-medicating ideas.
Arletta, you really got it down. You really know how to read things, because that is so true. I tell people I get high. It's like I just, I listen to one of my hobbies through the years was listening to all these motivational tapes and stuff. And it's like, I've been doing this for years. If I could help somebody, it all started within my family, my dad, my sister. And I think you're the first one that picked up on that. It's interesting. I think that has a lot to do. My big boss of Merck, the number one pharmaceutical in the world, he cornered me one day at a table. He says, Orazi, how do you do that year after year? And I just told him, I just love doing it. And it's like, my mom asked me when I was 7 to help her, and man, I realized my sister needed my help in latter years. And I figured, and it used to get so fed up because I talked to all these friends and family that everything seems perfect, and I go, why me, man? I got to make a living.
Because
I got
you
4 sons.
are, yeah, but you have to also realize that, thank goodness that you have this inside of you where you are able to work it out, and you learned what your niche is, because some people don't know what their niche is. Your dad loved drawing. He loved TV and film, but that wasn't his niche. His niche was sales, and he probably just didn't tap into it, and you just so happen to tap into it. So it helps you, to cure what you're feeling on the inside. So thank goodness you learned what your niche is and what you love, and that's helping people, because you're a natural born caregiver. So it's a great feeling to be able to help others, and also it makes you feel good, and it heals what you have inside of you as well. So I'm thankful that you were able to catch on to that, even though you didn't realize it. You realized it, but you wasn't able to verbalize it. So now I was able to bring it to your attention, and now you know exactly what is happening.
No, that's a great
no extra charge for that. That's a free.
No charge for that. No, you got it. I used to tell people, hey, I just get high when I sell a big one on Friday. I used to drive. I'd be in my car, and my boss, used to call me and say, used to play that song by Randy Newman, I Love LA, when I hit a big one. And it's like, yeah, I don't need alcohol. I don't need drugs. I got it, man.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So why did your father sell cars and stuff? I would think he'd made plenty of money, doing what he did at Disney and all that other creative stuff. Is it just because he was a workaholic and trying to occupy his time?
You're going to love this story. At 1956, he talked my mom, his brother, his third, it's 11. He was the oldest of 11 kids. Tell them he had this big investment, and my dad had $56,000 in the bank.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money back then.
Right, back then, yes.
He said, I'll pay you 20%. My dad gave it all to him for the 20%. My mom went along with it. And this is shortly after he got out of the mental hospital. So obviously, and after about 6 months, the big hotel investment for the Seattle World's Fair went bankrupt, and he couldn't keep it up, and he lost everything. So, so we started off, my mom had so many recipes for chicken, you wouldn't believe it. That's chicken all we soup. Ate. Nothing wrong with chicken, but she made it 100 different ways.
So he was scammed. Was it an honest? Was it an honest thing that could have gone good but went bad?
Well, it could have gone good, but it was investment in the big hotel in Seattle for the World's Fair was going to be there 1 year, but they delayed it a year. So that's what happened. He couldn't keep up. Yeah, and he got with the wrong partners, and we lost it all. But we managed to keep our home in Eagle Rock, and
thank God.
But the biggest thing is that he learned. And see, a lot of people, we have to realize this: no matter what our losses are, no matter how far we fall down, we have to learn from the situation. If you don't learn from that situation, it's going to continuously keep happening. And until you learn from it, then you can move on. And that's probably what it was. He just, he made a bad investment, but exactly, he actually moved on.
Yeah,
so
he did
that was
many
great.
times.
So
and then what he did, Dave, when he got, he didn't have his back and getting well again when he was 47, he started selling calendars, pencils, keychains, just to get back into it.
Did he need the money, or he was just trying to build that nest
No, he needed the money. My mom luckily packed some away, but he needed the money. And then he got back into because the car. Huh?
He was working a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Second, third jobs.
Yes, exactly. And basically that's been my I've been working 2 and 3 jobs for many years. I'm trying to balance it out, but it's tough. It really is. And, but I love what I do, and I love life. And you just got to help people when you can, and help yourself, and stay healthy. And that's what it's all about.
Well, the main thing is making sure that you're happy.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure you find what you love, and don't chase dreams. Just make sure that you're happy at all times.
Right. And that's what's that?
Self-care.
Self-care. Exactly. And, that's the reason I called the book Is Everybody Happy? Because I don't know if you got into the book, Everybody Happy. My sister always used to say that, even in the halfway homes that I used to visit her every couple of weeks. She'd always say, she'd go into a room, she'd say, is everybody happy? And I was talking to my sons one time, and they said, why don't you use that? It's the name of the book. And it's what she tried to be happy no matter what state of mind she is in.
There was a famous band leader who used to say that, is everybody happy? Who was that?
I can't remember who that was, but I remember that. Yeah.
Back in the 40s, 50s.
Yeah.
Anyway, what were the similarities of your sister's illness and your father's illness? Sounds like your father was really functioning. Was your sister functioning as well in between all of her episodes? Or
oh yeah, my sister, from the age of 3, she went to Antha Academy over there in Hollywood, and Mark Hamill was there taking the classes with her, the big Star Wars guy. There's something about him in the book, and it's like she was a superstar. My mom was a beautiful woman. She did vaudeville with my dad. 38 states they traveled to. when she was 17. They got married. But my dad never let her get into showbiz. You see her in the book. I mean, she's just an amazing looking lady. Everybody says, "Oh my God." And basically, I think she relived her life through my sister. And maybe that had a lot to do with everything that went down. I mean, she was she went 2 or 3 times a week to dance classes and all that stuff. And then, she had to be on the set and go to school on the set. And, I think, but overall, she had a good life. She wrote about it in her journals, and I picked up all her journals. And, it was very, and I know, Carletta, you have a son, but it's very strangely sometimes. I mean, she used to complain about not being able to go out on dates. My mom protected her till she was 16. And after that, it's kind of just got mixed up with some wrong people, but she still maintained her acting career primarily from the age of 11 to 19, 20 years old. And then she disappeared one time and, had a major trauma and ended up in a nervous breakdown. And
so she didn't do as well as your father then?
No, in her later life, she didn't do as well. What's amazing.
What I can tell you is from experience as a child actor, they go through so many different phases and stages. So with her, if your father wasn't well, your mother really wasn't on top of it. It may have been she didn't have anyone to bounce from. So she took the next best thing, which would be drugs. That will be helping her to cope with in acting. It's a lot of rejection, and people don't realize that. It's hard, and when I used to tell my son, when we leave that set or when we leave your audition, you forget about it.
Right.
Because it never happened.
No.
And the only way that you can do that is to train them for when they're little to know that it like you're still good. You're still great. They just didn't want you. You didn't have, gray eyes. You didn't have a prominent nose or something. And it's okay, because they're looking for the next best person. And it's okay because your turn will be coming up. And a lot of people don't realize that is what a lot of actors and actresses and singers and all that, because you're only great as your next gig.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And if you learn that little, you'll
Kathy
be fine. But if not,
Yeah, Kathy talks about that in her journals. There was 400 people that interviewed for that spot on Happy Days, and she felt so blessed. And it happened, and she wrote about it. I put it in the book, the letter she wrote to herself in her journals. And you just never know. And it's it's interesting. I look at it like sales that way too. And what I do day to day, it's like it's all numbers. I mean, there's people that tell me no all the time, but it doesn't stop me. It's like if you're good at what you do and you're good at what you do, you're always going to be good at what you do. And I think what really shook up my mom, and it's in the book, is Gary Marshall, the big time director that everybody knows, Happy Days, and what's the show with that actor? Well, it's Julia Roberts, and the one that
Pretty Woman.
Yeah, Pretty Woman. Yeah, Pretty Woman. I mean, he looked at my sister. He said, "Man, you're a beautiful girl," but he says, "If you stay healthy, you're going to be on top." And that bothered my mom, and she always used to talk about it because maybe he saw something. I have no idea, but
they do, because back then they got caught up into so many drugs and so much stuff that was happening, and that lowered their self-esteem, and they had to deal with, social anxiety. They had to deal with producers and directors coming on to them. And it's a different world. It was a different world before everyone, everything came out. And now, you can barely say anything to anyone, so a lot of these young women and young men are not going through as much as the actors that were getting beat out of their contracts, getting bad contracts, getting bad deals. Now, you have all these different attorneys and all these different people that will help you. Back then, you didn't have that unless you had money, and that was just it.
Well, let's
Richard
talk about our audience are burned out caregivers, And you have a great story, but I know we haven't even touched on the rough parts of it. Why was it so hard? What were some of the roughest things you went through, and explain how you burned out and how you dealt with the burnout?
Yeah, well, I guess the toughest things were, my sister. When she went, it's 20 years old. She used to move from house to house, so I'd have to move her in and out of different places 10 times a year because she just kept, it was just like a cycle. She wasn't happy anywhere. She was all over the place, and then, through that, and she kept being delusional. And then the toughest time of my caretaking of my sister was in her last 12 years of her life when she was. I tried to help her as much as I could, but she was in and out of mental facilities and assisted living homes. And then I would try to sit and engage with her, and, she would just be delusional. And then I would figure out a way to, kind of get her talking reality. And then I found it difficult. Like one time she got beat up and I didn't believe her in within the halfway house. Halfway house is like assisted living for mental illness. And and I went to see her the next time, and she had a big black eye, and she was telling the truth. And I kind of blew it off. Like, it's like I tried to stay in touch with her. We'd talk a couple times a week. I'd see her every couple of weeks. And I think, and dealing with my dad, I didn't understand him when he was high. I just never.
The same time or different times?
No, different times. Different times. My sister was like a guy, and, her later life, and my dad was in my childhood to my late teens and early 20s.
Were you married during all this time?
I got married at 22. I got married at 22.
So how did your wife handle your crazy family?
She was in totally denial. She was just, she didn't want to have anything to do with it, like most of America. It's weird. It's like she never knew that side.
She criticized you for spending so much time. Did she criticize you for spending so much time with them?
Yes.
Was it hard on the marriage?
It was hard on the marriage. Actually, it lasted 19 years, and I got remarried since then. It took me 15 years.
So
but
you broke up as a result.
Yeah, broke up as a result. Yeah.
Well, it also gave you, I'm sure it gave you anxiety and, a little PTSD because, or either, what do you call abandonment? Because you're feeling like your dad basically abandoned you. When you were younger, a lot of us go through that because we're right here. Dave, I remember you mentioning that at the fashion show, how you felt. You were like, I was there for her, and she just kept steadily pushing me away. And I was trying to do everything that I could. And, you just felt like you couldn't do enough until you got fed up. And it was like, okay, you have to figure something else out. So it takes a lot of toll on our bodies. And that's why I said a lot of us soul search for other things to pacify what we're missing because we get pushed away in that rejection from the people that we're trying to love on and trying to hug and make, make them whole while we're breaking ourselves down. So, a lot of, especially right now, Dave, you should be really focusing on self-care, because you've been through a lot of trauma, a lot of, trauma in your life that you don't realize right now. But you really need to sit down and think about, what do I like as Dave? Who am I? What do Dave, not what does Dave's wife like? What did Dave's father like? What did my mom like? But what do you like, and who are you?
I think that's great.
That will answer all of your questions.
Yeah, you may still be in the grief process.
Yeah, yes. That's true. That's true. Yeah, I've thought about that, and I've asked myself that, and you catch on pretty good, Carletta. I swear that's where I'm at in life, and it took me a while, and basically, you can imagine it wasn't abandonment. You imagine I have 4 sons I grew up with. They grew up with me as their father. I played sports. I was their coach for 14 years, but it wasn't all, roses, man. And then you're going to get up and leave. And, I'm still close to my sons, but there was about 5 or 10 years that it was really ugly, Yeah.
So let's talk about your book. What do you hope to accomplish? What do you hope readers will get out of your book?
Okay, and far as my book, I think what most people there have mental illness within their immediate family or within close friends. I think they read this book and they realize there's are ways to engage with them. If you just sit at a table with them, have a meal, just get them in a place one-on-one. You could attempt to talk to them. I mean, my sister used to get off her delusions, and I go, Kathy, that can't be. I says, you have a kid by this guy, by this guy, by this guy. And then she'd say, maybe you're right. I never had any church wedding or anything. She says, it's like, I'd have fun with it sometimes, and then she'd even laugh, it's like, I think if you really get to know the inside of the person, they're struggling. And, you put them in these places to take their meds. I couldn't have been a caretaker day-to-day basis because I had to keep on with my own life. But there are ways, I think they read the book, they investigate. There are programs that they could take care of them. And you could still be part of their lives. And you could still help them feel like they're part of the family. And that's what I tried to do year after year, with my sister, with my dad. I mean, holidays were always big, no matter what state of mind they're in. Hey, they got a family. All these people out on the street, everybody's, maybe they deserted them. They're in denial. They don't want to be with them. So if they read these stories, my two books that I've written so far about being around mental illness, there's a lot of good in mental illness if you just hit it direct on and learn from it and be able to use what you've learned and share that with other people.
What are the biggest mistakes you've made that you wish you could redo and make it right?
I guess the biggest mistakes that I've done that I'd probably redo is finding the balance, in your personal life. And, but it's so hard, people that you love, maybe you don't get the right, you need to just face everything day to day. And I think I look back, you look back in your first marriage and if you don't get along, get in their face and say, this ain't going to work, and put it, what did they say? Just put a button on it right then, or whatever the term is, and deal with it and get through it. Like, one of my great uncles years ago, he was 85. And I says, how do you do this? And he says, well, you just got to get through every day. And I think that's and sometimes I avoid it, and you can't avoid problems in life, man. Everybody has them.
Well, I can't believe how fast our time has gone today. How can our listeners get a hold of you if they want to learn more about your story or put you on another interview, or where you get your book?
Yeah, it's in my website. I have my phone number. It's in my website's www.davidfdorazi.com. I have Instagram. I have Twitter. I'm trying to get it out there. I'm doing blogs every day. I'm trying to do a video. I want people to learn from my experiences and make their life better. And I think I could do that. I mean, I'm hitting 70, it's like, man, I got a lot to share. It's a tough world out there, and I think I could help, especially with mental illness.
So that's David F. like Frank, Orazi, Orazi.
David F. DORAZI.com.
And the initial was F like Frank, right?
Like Frank, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have a Facebook page too, Dave?
Yes, I do. I have a Facebook page, Dave Dorazi and David F. Dorazi. So check it out. I try to put as much on there as I can.
Either with or without the initial, it works?
Yes. Dave Dorazi or David F. Dorazi.
I see. Well, Carletta Cole provides respite care for burned out caregivers and receives donations from donors so caregivers can afford to get away and recharge their batteries. Carletta, how can listeners get a hold of you?
Caregiversafeplace.com. That's the website, or Facebook. You can put in Caregiver Safe Place, and Instagram, Caregiver Safe Place. And that's pretty much it for right now.
Great. And remember, all our live shows become recorded pod and video casts on your favorite platforms. My newly released book, Secrets from the Hammock, Uncommon Wisdom for Uncommon Times, is spreading all wisdom all over the world, and it's available wherever books are sold. Also on my free membership website, caregiverdave.com. And if you join my Facebook community of 34,000 caregivers, You'll learn all about my new caregiver wellness retreat and mastermind in Acapulco that I offer burned out caregivers, trying to keep as many caregivers alive since 30% of them actually die before their loved ones do. Now, if you click the like or follow button on whatever platform you're watching or listening to this interview on, it helps us reach even more caregivers by improving Google's search engine algorithm. So thank you again to all my listeners out there all over the world for tuning in every Wednesday and making us the #1 caregiver podcast on the internet. So until next week, same channel, same time. May God richly bless you all. Bye-bye. Hey everybody, it's Dave Nassani, otherwise known as Caregiver Dave. And I'm coming to you live from this beautiful Acapulco villa, which I like to say is the perfect prescription for caregiver burnout. And I have a unique opportunity to bring 14 burned out caregivers up here so that they can decompress and do all the things that they need to do. But this is just a bonus. It actually comes with the 6-month Zoom coaching program. It's a one-on-one consult with me, Caregiver Dave, to identify where you are and where you need to go. It's a 6 monthly small group coaching sessions to smash any obstacles between you and your ideal vision of what a caregiver needs to be and caregiver success. You get my 3 free books and instructions on boundaries, grief, self-care, organization, asking for help, learning how to say no, avoiding burnout, avoiding depression, avoiding perfectionism, avoiding isolation, avoiding resentment, delegation, team building, how to have fun, how to have no guilt, the importance of gratitude, and after caregiving when you're no longer a caregiver. But this 7-day bonus is absolutely free. It comes with the coaching program that you pay for. And the food is all inclusive. I'm telling you, 7 days and 7 nights here is amazing. This is truly paradise. And I highly recommend it. For more information, go to caregiverdave.com. That's going to send you to my other website. And if you want a shortcut to get there immediately, just go to acapulcodave.com. Thanks again. I look forward to seeing you in Acapulco.
Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again.